A meal at Texas Roadhouse wouldn't be complete without the right sides, so here are the carbs, veggies, and everything else you need to look out for. Hot buttered corn is so simple, yet so satisfying. Alas, it's also very easy to mess up. Unfortunately, Texas Roadhouse's buttered corn is more messed up than satisfying. One of our biggest issues here is the texture. The corn is so overcooked to the point that it feels like just the kernel skins. Thus, they're decidedly not very plump, which is one of the most enjoyable parts about eating fresh corn. Furthermore, it's more oily than it is buttery, so you're not getting as much of the buttered flavor on the back end. Mashed potatoes are another one of those sides that feels so right when served next to a steak. We're sure that's what Texas Roadhouse had in mind when they considered offering these thick and fluffy mashers. Sadly, though, they're underwhelming, but not for the reasons you might think. While these mashed potatoes can be ordered in various ways, we're focusing on the one with beef gravy on top because it seems like the most obvious choice to pair with a good steak. Alas, the beef gravy just isn't very good. It's overly savory, almost artificially so, and has a weird aftertaste we just couldn't put our finger on. On the plus side, the mashed potatoes are actually very good. They're creamy, fluffy, and feature chunks of thick potato skin throughout, lending them a rustic flavor and texture. So if you go for the potatoes, skip the beef gravy. And if you don't want to eat them plain, there are much better ways to dress them up.
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Applesauce can be prepared in a number of ways, and some of them are quite disappointing. From a visual standpoint, Texas Roadhouse's version doesn't look very exciting, and the flavor is just as bland. It's not that it tastes bad per se, it's got the right amount of sweetness, and there's nothing offensive about it, making it a solid choice for picky kids. But there's nothing to write home about here, and it's certainly no different than a jar of applesauce that you could just as easily gobble up at home. Our recommendation to Texas Roadhouse is to get a little more creative here. Use real apples for chunky homemade vibes, or at least add a dash of cinnamon to spice things up a bit. The mac and cheese at Texas Roadhouse isn't the homemade version that's stuffed with all kinds of yummy cheeses and creams. Instead, it's just the boxed variety that you can find at a grocery store for $1 or $2. Still, if you're a blue box macaroni fan, you likely won't be disappointed with this rendition of a nostalgic childhood favorite. For one thing, the texture is creamy and velvety. Plus, it doesn't have the bells and whistles of extra seasoning, which makes it easier for kids to stomach while also setting the stage for the cheese to shine. It really doesn't need anything extra, not even salt or pepper. A hearty sweet potato filled with caramel sauce and toasted marshmallows sounds heavenly in theory, but in practice, not so much. One problem with this loaded tuber is that it's just too sweet. Of course, sweet potatoes already have a naturally sweet flavor, and it doesn't take much to amp them up. Adding marshmallows and caramel is just a little too overwhelming. Also, the charred marshmallow is a little too charred, leaving an unappetizing and bitter burnt aftertaste. When it comes to sweet potatoes, sometimes less is more. Maybe just a smear of cinnamon butter topped with gently roasted marshmallows would fare better. It might not sound as enticing as caramel sauce, but we truly believe it would be tastier. Texas Roadhouse's sauteed mushrooms are a total flavor roller coaster, and that's an experience we won't soon forget. Let's start with the positive, namely a firm and meaty texture with the perfect amount of tender juiciness. But alas, the negatives are too much to ignore. Once again, Texas Roadhouse gets it wrong with the umami flavor. It simply comes off too strong. Plus, with a mix of very potent black pepper, it tastes like a beef bouillon and peppercorn explosion happened in the kitchen, and not in a good way. We'll call this a split decision. If you're feeling lucky, you can try it yourself, and maybe you'll have a different opinion.
Got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Green beans might seem like a boring pairing with steak, but Texas Roadhouse proves that perception wrong. These aren't your average frozen green beans that have been heated and tossed in a bit of butter. At first glance, you'll notice that they have a brown tinge and seem to be swimming in a brown broth. There are also finely diced onions and a hearty sprinkle of bacon. That can all mean only one thing. We've got ourselves some Southern-style green beans. Although these green beans taste almost as good as Grandma's, they still don't quite make the top of the heap. There's a certain artificial beefiness that might be a bit too strong, depending on your palate. Still, they're good enough to be worth a recommendation, especially if you love smoky green beans cooked in bacon. Sauteed onions are undoubtedly meant to be paired with mushrooms and a beefy slab of steak, but even on their own, they're not too bad. Unlike the mushrooms, there aren't any weird flavor vibes here. The onions are perfectly cooked, not too firm and not completely mushy. They seem to be tossed in soy or beef broth, and they also seem to feature black pepper and a bit of flavoring to up the ante. Overall, this is an enjoyable bite that should be a show-stopping topper on a juicy steak. Order a side of all these onions and give it a go. A hearty steak fry is naturally the perfect accompaniment to steak, as well as burgers and other savory entrees. The best steak fries are hot, crispy, and salted, and Texas Roadhouse fares pretty well in this area. Simply put, these steak fries are undeniably delicious. They come nice and hot, featuring fluffy potatoes inside with a perfectly browned outside. They can be enjoyed with or without ketchup because they're just that good. One thing we really appreciate about these fries is their simplicity. Though some restaurants like to jazz up seemingly plain options with special seasoning, these fries arrive simply salted, just like a good steakhouse fry should be. You might encounter some charred ends, but you can just eat around them and toss the blackened butts to the side. Steamed broccoli isn't exactly the most exciting side dish, but it definitely serves its purpose, especially if your goal is to eat light. Though the presentation isn't much, there are some nuanced flavors here that surprised our palates. Rather than a floppy, bland floret, these are nicely formed broccoli pieces with an interesting flavor profile. Texas Roadhouse's website notes a lemon pepper butter on the broccoli. We didn't detect a citrusy flavor though. Instead, it came across as something more like soy and garlic. Overall, this broccoli is a winner, and not as drab as you might expect. There are a number of ways to prepare chili, and depending on where you're from, you may very well have your own specific, deeply held preferences. Perhaps you like it with a hint of sweetness, and while that's not the case with Texas Roadhouse's chili, it's definitely not gross either. Topped with shredded cheddar cheese and a sprinkling of potent red diced onion, the flavor here is top-notch. It's got a strong chili taste with little to no heat, while the spices and the toppings work just right to keep both your tongue and stomach happy. It also comes with a pack of crackers so that you can dip or break them over the top of your bowl, just like you would at home. It's like ordering a warm bowl of comfort, so get ready to dig in. There's something about Caesar salads that's just so mundane. Perhaps it's the lack of toppings or the lackluster dressing. Whatever the reason, they're usually not on the A-team of salads. Despite all that, Texas Roadhouse's Caesar salad is done remarkably well. Everything from the crispy and flavorful croutons to the dreamily thick and creamy dressing left us salivating and gulping down each bite. Yes, it really is that good. This seems to be the trend with Texas Roadhouse salads in general. So try it for yourself and see what we mean. We promise you won't regret it. How good could a simple house salad really be? Texas Roadhouse is here to answer our skepticism. For one thing, this unassuming house salad features loads of toppings. While other restaurants might only offer a smattering of lettuce with a sprinkle of cheese and tomatoes, Texas Roadhouse kicks things up a notch. They dress their crispy lettuce and greens in thick shredded cheddar, with the crispiest, crunchiest, most flavorful croutons you could ever imagine. That's all before topping it with vibrant diced tomatoes and a heaping helping of hard-boiled eggs. Texas Roadhouse offers multiple delicious dressing options. We recommend the French. Ultimately, the flavors all come together for one mouth-watering salad that tastes almost as good as the entrees.
2 salads.
There isn't usually a lot to say about rice. In most cases, rice is just rice, but Texas Roadhouse's seasoned rice really did a number on our taste buds in the best way possible. We're not sure what kind of culinary magic was performed here, but the flavor really stands out. It seemed like it was doused in all the deliciousness typical of a seasoned roasted chicken, with flavors like butter, parsley, chicken broth, and garlic all dancing merrily on the tongue. Like many of the other side dishes, Texas Roadhouse doesn't provide much insight into the ingredients used here. Still, we give this rice 2 hefty thumbs up for its outstanding flavor. In case you haven't heard, Texas Roadhouse offers some of the best baked bread out there. Served as individual dinner rolls presented in a basket, these warm and fluffy buns really whet your appetite and tantalize your taste buds.
I love bread.
Before biting into one of these, you should be sure to add a giant glob of cinnamon butter ahead of time to get the full effect. The result is a mouthful of goodness with a perfectly balanced flavor that's subtle, sweet, and buttery enough to make you go wild. They're so good, in fact, that you'll really have to practice some self-control to keep your stomach empty enough for the main course. So if you love a good dinner roll, get ready to be wowed, but make sure you set a limit ahead of time. We've finally made it to the most delicious, most show-stopping side dish available on the Texas Roadhouse menu, and it is the loaded baked potato. Many of us have surely enjoyed some tasty loaded baked potatoes before, but they don't usually leap up to the top of the side dish heap immediately upon biting into them. To start, everything comes served on top of a fluffy and perfectly cooked warm potato. This already impressive foundation is stacked with butter, sour cream, cheddar, and bacon. The cheddar cheese shreds are thick and noticeable, almost as if they have been shredded fresh with a hand grater. The flavor of the cheese is undeniably sharp, leaving an intense burst that really envelops and lingers on your taste buds. But now let's get to the best part about this loaded potato, and that's the bacon. Simply put, this bacon is absolutely amazing. The flavor is dynamically smoky, and the texture is spot on. It's perfectly thick and chewy, and chances are you'll be eating most or all of this potato before even getting to any of the other sides. Quite frankly, if you went to Texas Roadhouse only for the loaded baked potato, we wouldn't blame you.